How's it, guys? Welcome to another episode on the Reality Shift. Today's episode is sponsored by Sprout Africa, a facilitator in the development of African farmers to ensure long-term sustainability in the agricultural sector. Please do check them out, www.sproutafrica.co.za. And without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome to another episode on the Reality Shift of the mighty Dimitri Kalamoudacos. He is, of course, the founder of Airos. He is a blogger and he is a professional model. And it's an absolute honor to have him on the show today. Dimitri, thank you so much. How was that introduction?
That was too much. That was way too much. What was more special for me was getting to know everyone around me. You know, we weren't from the same background. Yeah. A lot of the people were from informal settlements. Some were from more privileged backgrounds, which was awesome. And the blend was something special. At first, I was completely alienated. No one wanted to speak around me. They were like, this guy and all this nonsense. And it took them 3 weeks to even add me to the squad WhatsApp group. Yeah. I felt pretty cool to be a part of it, but at the same time, I was like, you guys been leaving me out all this time. You can find Airos on airos.co.za, that's AIROS, and you can take a look around there. There's a whole bunch of interesting things. If you want to learn how to program, you can check us there.
Welcome to another episode on the Reality Shift. Today, it's an absolute blessing to have the mighty Dimitri Kalamoudacos. He is, of course, the founder of Airos. He is a blogger and he is a professional model. And it's an absolute honor to have him on the show today. Dimitri, thank you so much. How was that introduction?
That was too much. That was way too much. But I appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for coming, man. I really appreciate you, man. So I think we're just gonna start off at the beginning.
Wonderful.
So let's just talk about, you yourself as an individual, how you grew up, and just the foundations of yourself, and just leading up to the space that you're in now.
Yeah, good. So I think just from my side, growing up was a beautiful thing, but also wasn't easy. I was a child with a couple of muscle deficiencies, which I went to an occupational therapist for. So we squeezed those little balls, did the funny exercises. My parents put in a trampoline. So to help develop the muscles, and then we decided swimming was a good idea. So I got into that, loved the water, and never really looked back. But with swimming as a lifestyle, I ended up spending all my time in the pool and in the classroom. So socially, I wasn't very active during school. And from an actual academic level, concentration wasn't my best bet. When you've got a wide vision of the world, it's very hard to focus on just one thing when you can imagine everything else. And that became very interesting. Even into university, it was a little bit of a struggle. But then I caught onto a blessing called Concerta, and that took my marks from not so great to distinctions all around. So it's amazing what a little bit of focus can do, and that was something that I definitely learned in that time.
Okay, so let's talk about coming into the formation of Airos and how that came about.
Okay, so myself, I've always believed that there must be something more. That personally I was destined for something bigger, and I know it's a little bit self-righteous, but I believe that you got to be your number one fan. Otherwise, what's the point? You got the whole world judging you, telling you what you should be, telling you what you can't do. I'd rather think about, that's good and well. You tell me that, and I'll show you different. And through that journey, and this was something I learned from swimming as well, is that my coach had a knack for pointing out the errors, and it's a good thing. It helps you get better. Criticism is so important.
Constructive criticism,
Exactly. And it did help, but I also found that my mindset was negative, and I spent a couple of years correcting that. And there was a really good book I read by actually a swimming psychologist that said, you've got to be your biggest team player, and started repeating certain
mantras,
Yes,
affirmations.
exactly, affirmations,
Yeah,
you know, to yourself.
yeah,
And that sort of shift really, really worked for me. It took me from a regional swimmer to a national swimmer, which was amazing.
yeah, yeah,
And then when I learned that, you know, hey, you can be arrogant and confident and then hold yourself accountable. You see, because then you play yourself.
yeah,
And that's what I started to begin to do, to give myself big, bold goals,
yeah.
to even tell those people about those goals and then to chase them. Because then those people would keep me accountable, not for their standards, but for the standards I gave them.
Oof.
And that was really powerful for me, and I started to see it come to life. But to come back to Airos and how we got there,
Yeah,
once again, I've always thought there was something more.
yeah,
You know, I worked for some different corporates, which was wonderful. You know, the corporate life is relaxed, it's very well funded, there's great benefits, but there's a ceiling.
yeah,
You know, there's a very, very clear ceiling as to how much you can learn, how much you can grow, and where your limitations are.
yeah,
And I'm definitely not a genius, but I do believe that those environments taught me that the people around me maybe didn't know as much as I thought. That these people at these massive corporations were winging it just like we could be.
yeah, yeah.
So I didn't see much of a difference between us and them, aside from the massive capital at the back. And that's for me when I started to consider, you know, maybe I should look at building my own thing. I did spend some time at a startup, which was beautiful. It really introduced me a little bit more to technology, which I was against at first. You know, my mother is a global lead in technology. My uncle is the leading mind in cryptocurrency in the world.
So that would be the reason why you were rebelling against the technology
Yeah.
side, because of, okay, I understand.
It
I
wasn't
was just
sexy,
thinking to
you know?
myself, like,
Like it
I was
just
like,
wasn't sexy. You
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
you're thinking about being a sports star, you know, like,
Yeah.
or about being a performing artist. You know, those
Yeah.
are the beautiful things that look
True.
like they're amazing.
Yeah.
And technology just wasn't at that stage. You
Yeah.
know, everyone knows the Apple story, everyone knows Bill Gates.
Yeah.
But you don't really understand the journey. And that's the thing, you know, because no one tells the whole story.
Yeah.
You just see that this is the richest man in the world. And there's so much more to it. So when I eventually decided to look into it, to try and see how we can make this happen, to start even teaching people how to put programs together and teaching myself, that's when I really started to come alive and understand that, you know, the change that you can make in a person's life just from teaching them technology is incredible. You know, we had the opportunity to teach someone who went from living in an informal settlement to being employed at one of the leading technology companies in SA.
Wow.
And it wasn't that he didn't have the skills, you know, he was an African gentleman, graduated from university, his communication was terrible, his English, but his mind was sharp. But because no one was willing to give him the chance,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he didn't have that opportunity to actually gain experience. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, everyone wants you to have 5 years experience before you leave university, which is a joke. But he managed to get that practical experience through one of our courses because that's how they're structured. You know, I always tell the people that come through, consider what it is that you can do with the lessons we've taught you. You know, what can you take technology and apply it to? What problem can you solve? Because the best businesses in the world, you know, they don't force you into taking your money. You wanna give it to them because you're solving a problem. You know, Netflix is a massive example. You know, the movies are expensive. Streaming, well, pirating is illegal. They just made movies affordable and they put them right in front of you. Now that's a massive example, but on a smaller scale, you know, we've had students that have graduated from the Airos program and built programs for their own little business. Someone had a tutoring business, so they built a scheduling application so that their students could schedule time with them. Yes, there's other things out there for them that can do the same thing, but in that process of learning, they were able to build something valuable for themselves. And you know, that solution is really the most interesting piece of technology, because as Africans, we've got to look at ourselves and say, it's not in a great shape, people. And the only way we're really going to make a difference is if we stop throwing stones, is if we look at the problems that we're trying to ask everyone else to solve, and we do it ourselves. And technology gives us that. And we're at a stage where technology can do almost anything. I learned how to build apps in like 6 months using a new technology called Flutter. And I'm so excited to teach that to people because you can go from nothing to application in like 3 weeks.
Jeez. Okay, let's use that as a segue. Let's talk about how pre and post lockdown COVID-19 has either accelerated or distilled, especially when it comes to online businesses, online services and products. So let's talk about how that has happened, how that shift has happened in your business.
Okay, no, that's fair. Lockdown has been something special.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful time to reflect. It was a beautiful time to get things done, but the shift towards the development business was the most prominent shift, because with lockdown everyone realized that so many things are temporary, that physical stores are beautiful, but I can't reach anyone if for some unknown reason the world locks down again. And that there are other avenues out there. You see, so many people are focused on what my business is now that they can't see the possibilities outside of that. And that's what started to happen, is a lot of people started to approach us and say, you know, you can get us online, you can get us systemizing our business, we need to save costs, we need to get to our customers, we need to see the analytics. All these things that take a business from being a hand over fist sort of thing, you know, just feeding yourself, to actually becoming like a corporation, you know, something that functions within a certain set of parameters and systems. And that's what started to become very interesting. And the value that we can bring to a business there is that, you know, you may not be able to see what we can see. You see your business and you know it intimately. We know the technology intimately, and you teach us your business, and we can marry those two to make something special. And that's really where the development business really just started to skyrocket. Obviously, nothing is without problems. You know, testing, pushing things live, something's bound to go wrong. You know, when you're pushing things live from 10 testers to all of a sudden 1,000 users, someone's going to pick up an error, whether it's as remedial as a spelling mistake or a logical error in the system. So that was been a challenge in itself. But the education business also saw some change, and what that looked like is the appreciation for education is diminishing, because there's so many affordable options online. YouTube provides
YouTube
everything.
University.
100%. My aircon broke a year or two ago. I'll phone someone to come fix it. He's gonna be like, it's 600 Rand call out fee. I was like, don't even stress.
DIY,
I got onto YouTube, I cleaned it up, washed it, fixed it. It worked beautifully after that. Saved myself the money, the call out fee, and who knows what else he would have found. See, that's the thing. We've become naive to so many different things. You know, the luxuries around us. Like your car breaks down. No, your car goes for a service. You get charged for things you don't even understand. You pay because you don't understand it. It doesn't make it right. So, you know, to be informed is our own responsibility. And, you know, what we've found, and our customers on the education side are slowly starting to find, is development as a business, as a professional, it's a beautiful thing, but you can't just learn from a monkey see, monkey do. You've got to learn the best practices, because there's a million ways to do things. You know, there's like almost an infinite amount of programming languages, which will allow you to execute any specific task in different ways. And then within each programming languages, there's different logical processes that you can put in place to actually get a particular outcome. But whether the way in which that process works to deliver that outcome is the most efficient is always the question. So just because you got from 1 + 1 to 2 doesn't mean that your 1 and 1 are the perfect pieces. And that's where we are trying to just show the people our value, to say that if you learn something from a professional and you start to see where the actual best practices come into play, then you become a professional developer, you know, become someone of value. But before that, you're the same as we just talked about just now, DIY. You YouTube the answer, you figure out how it fits into your code, and then you hope to God it works. Now that's a problem, because what happens when something goes wrong? You didn't understand what you put into the code, so now when something goes wrong, you have this Jenga block just falling everywhere. But yeah, a little bit of a tangent. So with regards to actual COVID and lockdown, the reflection was beautiful, but the model of the education business got some attention. And we're only opening that up again probably towards the beginning of next year, but with a different focus, because the professional community is so focused on developing themselves
Yeah.
in the best way possible,
Yeah.
when as a country our schools are struggling to teach our students these skills.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I wanted to get into. I think this is. I don't know if it's expressed or talked about, especially in entrepreneurial spaces. But I think this is a wonderful space to have a chat about it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about managing stress, anxiety. Because being an entrepreneur, it comes with so much uncertainty and things that you have to solve, problems that just manifest themselves out of,
Yeah.
and I'm aware that you have been through this journey and have had a degree of success, and I'm sure you'll have insights and information on how to manage with such.
Yeah. No, look, you're not wrong at all. The most important piece for managing stress is to know yourself. And I can't stress this enough, because stress and anxiety put you in a place where you're not sure what to do. So the worst place you could possibly be is starting to question who it is that you are and what is your purpose. And for me, you've got to have that clear in your mind and your heart, because it's so easy for you to question everything that you do from there on out. So that one is a fundamental. It's a long journey, it's a difficult journey, but it must be had. And if you don't do it intentionally, life will do it for you. And what you do to come out of that will happen one way or another.
So how would you say you'd go about knowing yourself, as you said? What was your journey? What did you experience, and the tenets that you've taken from?
That one it's not easy, because not everyone does this, but it's just reflection. I tend to almost instantly reflect on things as I say them. It's not intentional, it just happens.
Yeah.
And because of that, I can then be aware of the state I'm in and understand that there's no need to react irrationally. Sometimes I find myself in positions where I just want to tell people to pack up their stuff and go.
Yeah.
But I know that's not going to solve the problem. So you see, when there's a problem that faces you, it's not about expressing your emotion. No, it's about solving the problem. And the reflection is not always easy. Writing things is beautiful. Getting in touch with your emotions is something I can't stress enough.
Yeah.
It's so important to allow yourself to feel. Because without that, it really starts to contain itself. I had a lot of pent-up emotion for quite a few years, and my girlfriend actually helped me to deal with those things. Not in the sense that I needed counseling or anything, but in the sense that I was allowed to vocalize, allowed to converse, discuss these different things, and actually process them, to go through them. And that's been the most real thing for me, to really get to know yourself better, because as soon as you're 100% you, no one can tell you anything, man.
Yeah.
And people appreciate that, because they know that you're consistently you all the time.
There we go.
And that's really the benefit. But I've got to share one other thing with you. When you're having a bad day, it's so important to recognize that it's happening. Whether it's your state of mind, whether it's what's happening in front of you. This is a very simple trick that I love doing. If something's not going well, if the day just didn't start well, I think to myself, I'm like, let's close this day off. Let's just finish it. It could be 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to go have a nap. I'm going to lie down for half an hour. I'm going to go take a shower. I'm going to put new clothes on and start the day again.
Wow.
You leave it behind. You got to leave it behind, man.
Wow.
And you let your mind just remove that piece. That day is now finished. We are now living a new day. Let's do it to our full potential.
Jeez.
And it works. It genuinely works. Because your body is accustomed to going to sleep.
And then...
Exactly.
Oh.
And that for me is the most powerful thing, because being an entrepreneur is no joke. And the difficult times people will never be able to understand. The risks people will judge you for.
Oh, man.
And the struggle people will fight with you about until it becomes success.
Yeah. So let's talk about, it seems like I've been going in chronological order. I didn't even memorize this, but I've been... But let's talk about that. What are the tenets and what does one need to do in order to become an entrepreneur? Because from my experience, it is not for everybody. It really isn't. But we do have entrepreneurs in different degrees, micro, macro level, and depending on you and what you're looking to do in your life and how you're looking to service humanity. So what would you say,
Look, to be an entrepreneur, you got to be passionate about something. You really got to let your heart yearn for something.
Yeah.
I don't personally believe that entrepreneurship is a simple idea of trade.
Okay.
As a person that comes from a family of Greek people that are in retail, I can tell you that yes, that is definitely a piece of entrepreneurship. But in the time we're living in, for me, you've got to solve a problem. You can either be the person that manufactures the bottle caps for the Coke bottles,
Yeah.
which makes no difference really. Someone else could do it if you didn't.
Yeah.
Or you could look around you and solve a problem that is directly in your vicinity. You could support your community. You could alleviate stress and pressure from the people around you. But now to come back to the characteristics of an entrepreneur, you've always got to be able to be real with yourself. You've got to have a big mind and being able to dream. And those two are they're oxymorons. And you'll find yourself fighting inside all the time about, do we take this jump or do we look at the numbers and say, it's not worth it? And it's that little piece in the middle, like you always draw these three circles and they intersect at that one point. It's that little piece there that really makes one an entrepreneur, to say that we're going to take the jump.
Yeah.
And it's such a risky thing. I'm sure you've heard the saying that it takes 5 years to build a business. Now, I've heard people tell this to me a lot. And I've come to realize that it doesn't take 5 years to build a business. It takes 5 years to build a brand.
Oh.
And the reason why that is different is because only until people realize what it is you are doing, what it is you stand for, and can really appreciate it, that your friend can phone you and say, hey, I've got a wooden deck that needs to be put up. I know you've got the business, let's do it. And that only becomes known to the people once you start to consistently deliver. And that's the important thing. For years I struggled with a personal image thing where everyone just labeled me as the swimmer, which was fine, but that's not what I was doing. And it's taken me a long time to even just move out of that bracket, even in my own head, because it's what I told people.
And one would even argue that it is only in our heads.
It's true.
It's
true.
Because the change is only internal.
That's it.
The external is changed by the internal.
That's it. No, you're 100% right. And it's that internal change that needs to transform into different branding materials and marketing materials, into conversation, so that you can start having a different conversation instead of, how's swimming going? How's the business going? What projects are you working on? And you start to actually tell the people around you, and they start to then be your audience, but also your advocates. And that's what you want. I mean, we're sitting here because of the same reason. Clayton told you something, and all of a sudden here we are. And that's the reality of the transformation, to say that you can't operate in the dark. Once you've made the shift, once you've committed to the journey, you got to talk to people. So I'm here because other people are in the background busy doing the work that I'm not doing right now. But I'm doing the work that they're not doing as well. And it's important to realize that.
Okay, so on to the more important stuff.
Okay.
Let's talk about your personal brand. Let's talk about modeling. Let's talk about how you came into that and how...
That's almost a podcast on its own.
Let's dive into that.
Okay, no worries. So the modeling thing, I've never considered myself an extremely attractive human. I just haven't. But when I turned 21, all of a sudden females became interested in me, and then I was like, hey, maybe we're not so bad. I did suffer with a lot of acne in school. No, that's what they say.
Oh man.
Look, I mean, swimming gave me free assets as well, which
Yeah,
I wasn't
yeah, yeah.
afraid to use. And that's just the reality.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
look,
yeah.
it only really happened when my girlfriend actually said to me that, look, there is these open castings happening in Durban, municipal events, the New Face program.
Yeah.
So I was like, I got
May as
nothing
well.
to lose. Let's give it a shot. Turns out they liked me. And then I started entering the program, went through the different phases of the actual casting until I was entered and secured in the program. And that whole journey was super interesting because I was the only white person. And I don't have racial nonsense in front of me, as a person of Greek descent, like, we are more loud and proud than any nation in this world, and it's not even a joke. We set the floor on fire, we break plates, we have a good time.
Yeah.
So, everyone gets labeled with the same brush, but the truth is there's so many different cultures out there, and for me that's what makes South Africa beautiful.
Exactly.
But what was interesting in this whole journey is that we were doing this thing, we're now doing the different walks, we were doing the fitness programs. I had to lose a whole bunch of weight because I was gymming at the time.
Yeah.
So I had to drop down from about 90 kgs, 93, to about under 85. And it was quite a big move, but I know myself, being an athlete in the past,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know how to make things happen.
Yeah.
So we did that, and that was beautiful. But what was more special for me was getting to know everyone around me. We weren't from the same backgrounds.
Yeah.
A lot of the people were from informal settlements, some were from more privileged backgrounds, which was awesome. And the blend was something special. At first I was completely alienated. No one wanted to speak around me. They were like, this guy and all this nonsense. And it took them 3 weeks to even add me to the squad WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
I felt pretty cool to be a part of it, but at the same time I was like, you guys been leaving me out all this
Yeah.
time. So it was such
man.
an interesting journey, but
Yeah.
by the end of it all, we learned to appreciate each other. We learned to drop the stereotypes that we had of each other, and that was one of the most beautiful things I've ever been a part of.
Yeah.
Because by the end of that experience, when we did do the final Durban Fashion Fair show as a group, man, I was renamed Fiso by the group. I had John Kambul teaching me Zulu, legend of a human.
Yeah.
And we were busy walking around there having the time of our lives. We became friends in that process.
Yeah.
But before that, it was unsaid enemies. Now, that whole experience was beautiful because of that, but the actual modeling journey opened up another side to me.
Yeah.
It allowed me to be fun and adventurous and exciting. It allowed me to almost commit to the person within. Instead of holding certain pieces out. You
That's
keep
powerful,
things with your
actually.
siblings,
Yeah,
with your
yeah,
family.
yeah.
You'll be crazy, make noises and all sorts. All of a sudden, I'm like, I'm great. I actually am. And that was a beautiful experience. And since then, it hasn't been smooth sailing. I'm different from a modeling perspective. The beard's one thing, the height is another.
Yeah.
And I know they say you got to be tall for modeling, but as soon as you move above 190, people start looking at you like, are the pants going to show his ankles?
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what it is. You do become a glorified coat hanger, but I connected with so many people on the journey, and I've done every Durban Fashion Fest since, which has been beautiful. I love the ramp modeling. I've done a couple of adverts, a couple of music videos, and I won't call it a hobby, but it's definitely not my main income or my main business, but I do enjoy it.
Yeah.
And the reality is there's so much more of it happening in Durban that anyone knows, unless you're in the industry. I mean, unless you've been to the Durban Fashion Fair, you can't actually appreciate the work that goes into that. It's world class.
Yeah.
And that was an absolute bombshell for me. I was like, the first show, I couldn't even see the audience. The lights were on me, and I was so nervous to walk in front of thousands of people. And it sounds so silly because you walk every day, but I couldn't see anyone, and I just did what I needed to do, and it worked. And from that, I got a couple of little endorsements, little influencer packages, which was a win, from a beard oil company, from another one from a cell phone company, and that was awesome. But what modeling also does is it helps you keep in shape. because you never know
Ooh,
when CJ is going to
jeez.
phone you. Hope you're watching. To tell you that you got to be ready tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, that's happened too many times. And then you're like, how many gym sessions can I fit in a day?
Yeah,
You know, to
yeah.
get into that perfect shape that you want to be in, because you want to bring in everything you've got.
Yeah.
And the personal brand is, as a whole, definitely still looks to a lot of people like I'm just a model that seems to be living a decent life. And that's simply because I haven't really been able to understand how to just pivot from that everything is fun to, but I'm also very professional. And I mean, that's a learning that I hope to take on in the next 12 months and actually put out there. Because, you know, I do believe it's our responsibility to have a voice.
Yeah.
You know, we've been given a set of gifts, different perspectives, and, you know, remaining silent is not very effective for a lot of things. But it's always important to make sure that when you speak with purpose. I don't have much respect for the people trolling the comments on Facebook, for people posting things with their feelings and their nonsense. It hurts more people than it does good. You know, for someone to recognize, I suppose, their own journey on Facebook's not a problem. But I mean, don't throw your opinion out there without it being justified. You know, if you know you're going to hurt a couple of people with something as simple as that, say it at your house.
Yeah.
Like, everyone doesn't need to hear it. If you're looking for a reaction, look, you'll get one, but is it worth it? Like, because people brand you every time you say something, and that's where the personal brand becomes reality. Is, you know, what are you saying? And that's pretty much the whole story.
You said a hell of a lot.
Excuse me for that.
No. This has been awesome. This really has been awesome. And to be very honest, we've literally covered absolutely everything. The final thing is, where can we find all of Airos's handles and your personal handles as well? Where can people find you and connect with you?
Awesome. Well, you can find Airos on airos.co.za. That's AIROS. And you can take a look around there. There's a whole bunch of interesting things. If you want to learn how to program, you can check us there. With regards to the development business, it's helixdynamics.xyz. So it's under a different brand for the simple reason that we don't want to confuse everything along the way. And then the social handles are much the same. I think Airos on Instagram is AirosOfficial_1. And then my own handle is the Dimitri __.
The great Dimitri.
I try to get the Dimitri without the underscore, but the guy that has it, I even DM'd him. I was like, give me my name. And he wasn't having it. But yeah, man, so that's really where you can find me.
Yeah.
Otherwise, look for the really tall guy walking around.
Yeah, that one. Oh man, it's been an absolute pleasure, man. I really appreciate you coming on, man. It's been an absolute blessing. And guys, I hope you've learned, and I hope you enjoyed this video. So please do like and subscribe, comment at The Reality Shift SA and at Litswe Mboto on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok. And thank you so much once again, guys. And yeah, let's keep doing the best that we can, and let's keep spreading the love and keep progressing.
Stay blessed.